All right, so here we go. A textured tripod mug that we're gonna do. Okay, so first I'm gonna play around with some texture on this. So like I showed you before, you can find things that have texture and you can apply them to your clay. You can carve into it. You can create a texture on your slab. Now, whether I keep this or not, I don't know, but maybe I will. I'm just making a texture over the slab. You can use anything to create a texture, right? This is just the thing that I found first. Never done this. All right, I made some of, I varied the amount of pressure that I put on it. Right, now, I've seen people take the bottoms of shoes, right, and push them into the clay. Anything to get texture. You find an interesting texture, that's what you're doing. You can use forks. Again, you can use the rib that you use the card to create a texture. Anything that creates a texture, and that's what you want to do. Be creative, right? Find something that could be interesting. Just look around. Let your mind tell you things, right? I just saw this laying over there, right? What if I just... Okay, so that's texture. It's a lot of random texture, but it's texture. So we're gonna go with that. Clean some of this off. Sometimes if you do something that creates a lot of sharp edges, you want to make sure you take a damp sponge and just kind of smooth some of that out. Right? Now I'm not saying like soak the whole thing down, just kind of brush it off a little bit with a sponge. And that'll just kind of quiet down the edges a little bit. Now I'm gonna end up cutting this more, right? Because I don't want I want it to be a little taller than a normal mug because of what I'm doing to the bottom, right? Because I'm creating a tripod, right? So I want to have more space to work with, so I still have enough volume in the mug. So it is gonna be a little taller, but I think I want to play around with this texture thing and just maybe stretch this out a little more and see what happens to the texture on there. Now I'm not dropping it on the texture side. I guess I could. Just kind of stretches it out a little bit. That's probably not as interesting as I saw it in my head. That's better. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. All right, so, and plus, my slab is now thinner, right? But I'm looking at my lines here, and this is not straight, so I do want to start with a nice rectangle. So I'm going to cut straight this way. Cut straight this way. This line is off, so I'm going to cut that straighter. Really what you're trying to do, what I'm trying to do is I'm just squaring this up a little bit, right? And I'm doing it by eye. I'm not really doing it. I certainly didn't measure this, so I can see that it's can get it straighter. That's good. All right. So now I have two places that are, this is my slab. So one of the long edges is going to be the rim, right? And one of the edges is going to be the base. In a normal mug, I could wrap this around something and I mean, I still can, but I can add a base to it, but I'm not adding a base to this. I'm making the feet out of this slab. So I'm still probably gonna roll it, right, in a form, but I need one that's big enough that I can actually do it. This one will probably. Yeah, that will work. All right, so this is I found a bigger tin can that I'm going to use for the form, and that's going to work just fine. You can find anything. I wouldn't do anything really short, right? You want to find something tall, and I wouldn't do anything really skinny, like it's going to be a mug, right? So a mug has to have volume. You want to be able to drink out of the mug. So if you make it too skinny, it's really hard to drink out of, right? See, with this size mug, like that's a pretty good size, and that's about the size of this. And when you start to drink from it, your face goes in it, right? Your nose goes in it. You can smell the coffee, you can taste the coffee. Oh, it's affecting more senses at one time, right? Now, if it's too small, your nose is sitting out here, right? And then you can't get anything out. Like it doesn't taste as good, right? Or whatever it is you're drinking. All right, what have we got here? Yeah, your nose. You understand. You smell things that you drink, and you smell things that you eat, right? Which affects the way you taste things. Okay, so. Now, if this one's going to be my foot, what I want to do is turn this over. This is still going to be my foot. This is going to be the rim, right? So for the rim, I'm going to go ahead and start taking care of that, right? You can find something round. I have one of these that'll work, but if you have, I'm not going to flatten this, all right? So I'm going to hold this at an angle. You could probably do this with a pen or pencil. I want to start taking that edge down, right? Because that's the part that's going to go in my mouth, right? That's the rim. So it actually is going to work better for me this way. I know this is a really small thing to work on, but I just have a slight angle going on this rim. Because I know what I'm working on, right? I know what I want to address. That can be done now, and that's going to work for me. All right, so now, if that is that, I'm going to go ahead and make the cylinder. Again, just like with the lanterns, right? You can a lot of people bouncing in and out of here. Okay, so just like with the lanterns, you don't have to use a form to do this, right, to roll this clay on here. You can pick this slab up, right, like this one, and you can shape it into a circle, right? This time we actually want to stay round, right, because of what we're doing to the bottom. Okay. All right, so I'm going to roll this and get a measurement. Draw my lines. Okay, so I know that's going to be a little big for that, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it this way. Yeah. I'm going to cut it a little short, because I know I was off when I drew my line, right? Now I'm going to cut this same angle. So I have the same angle, right? Now, should probably start this way at this point. Oops. That didn't work out so well, did it? Okay. Glad we got that on film. Or video, whatever you want to call it. Alright, we're going to drop back and punt. So, you know, every time you do something, there's a chance that something bad can happen, right? So that time, something bad happened. But we'll just fix it. Now, I could definitely score and slip that, and it would probably be a lot better. I mean, really what I would do, if I weren't doing this and trying to get finished with it, what I would really do is just start over with a new slab. But I'm not going to do that here. Because that'll take too long. We'll see if I can get it to hold together. A lot of that is I'm really trying to get it pretty thin. I'm just going to restart this. So it's definitely going to have some interesting scars. That's what scars are, right? Just stories to tell later. Alright. Now, again, I think I still want to still thinking that's going to be the rim, right? It's the base. Let's try this again. Yeah, really everything would have been fine if I had just set it up and cut it, but I was trying to stretch it out more. I mean, really, it's still very textured. So it'll be fine. Everything's good here. Now you can play around. We talked about these seams before. You can play around with the seam and like add some stuff to it to make it kind of show off differently, or you can just kind of work it in to the pot. You can make it disappear, but because this is such a textured pot, I definitely don't want it to, remember I cut two angles, so it's not super thick. Like the thickness here is fine. It's just like the rest of it. But I also want to make sure, like when I make this tripod thing, that I don't end up, I don't want this seam to be on one of the feet. Okay. Now the height here bothers me. All right, we'll fix that later. All right, so I've got this. We're gonna pretend I scored and slipped that, right? Because I did. You saw it. All right, so I'm gonna take this can again, and I don't want. I want the seam to disappear. Really, I don't want to keep it. So, no. Use the same principle that you did when you were making stuff. And so I started, so now it's kind of camouflage, it's disappearing. So now I need to take this out. So this is the part where we start to make the tripod. So now, because this is not, I couldn't really do what I want to do with it when it's in with that form in it. So that's why I say you don't really have to do the form. I just like the form because it really helps me to have a round area. Okay, so but now I've got to be really careful with how I handle the rest of this. So I'm just kind of working that inside seam while I can. Start to make that disappear. And now I'm going to flip this over. Right, so I want to work on the bottom. I like the angle that I put on this part, but then I cut it and it made it really bad on this part. So I would definitely work on that. But this looks like a nice rim to drink from, right? Because it has a nice. Let me see if I can get it. That has a pretty nice little angle that'll work fine. Now I'm going to flip this over. Okay, so my seam is here, right? Yes, I don't know what you can see here. And so if you want to hold your hands with it, make a triangle, right? So if you make a triangle here, I can just shift around and make a triangle on the bottom. So this is one of the problems with having so much texture on your pot, is that some of these lines got pretty deep. And that's why it was breaking. As the thinner the clay got, the more it broke. All right, so now I know you'll see this better on the video, but you see the top of it, maybe. That's how I'm starting the triangle part, right? The tripod. So once I have my 3 spots marked out, Now I'm working this clay into here, and that's where I'm starting to get some cracks. You gotta just do this slowly. If you have, the less texture you have at this area is probably gonna be better, but you gotta start. I'm gonna pinch this together. I'm gonna end up putting some clay on the bottom. Um, because that's really not, I mean, and it's my fault for like really putting a lot of texture right there. But I can fix it, I can make it work. And I start just working in these feet here, like smoothing them out, making the connection where it's gonna stay. Because this is, you know, how it's gonna hold up. But again, I am gonna work on the inside, because that's where it's gonna need it. This seam, you know, now you've got 3 seams to worry about. You really want to, you know, make sure you've got a connection to it. All right, so you can see now, right, there's a hole in there, which is fine, because that always happens. But now I've got to go in there, and I'm going to start adding some clay to help hold this together. I need to put some pressure from the bottom so I can get that to stick. I don't want to lose that shape either that I have on the outside, so that's why I'm supporting it with my finger. I mean, it's kind of a tricky little project. It's not super hard, but there's a lot of little technical things to it, and that's why I wanted it for your midterm, and that's why we're doing it as a midterm. Because it's not just one or two, you know, it's like several things. There's function, which deals with the mug part, right? Then you got to really think about how this mug's going to work. You've got texture, surface design, and you've got some technical construction parts. Alright, so I'm going to flip it back over again. You can see now it's sort of patched on that side, but you know, take the time to get things like, make them disappear. I don't want to see that when I flip this over. I mean, use whatever it is that you're using to smooth things out. I mean, when you think about it, to have this thing where it is right now, considering how the slab fell apart, we're doing pretty good. Alright, so now I made that disappear. So I'm going to turn it back over and make it all disappear down here. So also now I think it's probably a good idea to take some of the really softer clay and start to put it down in the feet holes, right? As you can see down in here, where I connected these two, right? There's a space, and if I fill that space in, it's probably going to make this whole thing easier to clean. You know, from a mug drinking standpoint, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and fill those in. You know, remember, like I told you, you know, pay attention to every detail that you can. I don't want to see where I patched things, right? I want to make sure that it disappears. It's like if you're fixing a wall, you don't want to see where you fixed it, right? All you want to see is wall. All right, so there's one. So I think tomorrow I'll do a handle demonstration, because we don't need to get to the handle yet, but there's still a lot to do in this, and I'm not going to just sit here and do it while you stare at the outside of the pot. You can't really see what I'm doing. So I'm going to finish that. I'm going to get it straightened out, cleaned up, and then tomorrow I'll work on the handle part of it. But so and I'll put this in Canvas. By this afternoon, you'll have everything on there. So this is a tripod. So right now we have the texture part and we have the tripod part. So it's a tripod textured mug, and it's not a mug yet, but it will be, right? We've got the texture and we've got the tripod. So we'll work on the mug part tomorrow. All right.